Hey, what's going on guys? It's FPL Yusuf and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going over my top 10 differentials ahead of the game week 1 deadline. I'm going to be looking at players from different types of price categories, different types of positions, just to see if there's anyone that we've maybe either left out or overlooked ahead of the game week 1 deadline. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, welcome back guys. Thank you so much for joining me for another video today. Just before we get into this one, if you wouldn't mind dropping a thumbs up and subscribing down below, it would be greatly appreciated. So today is going to be around my top 10 differentials ahead of the game week 1 deadline. Now, what is a differential? So I've set the bar as a differential as someone who's 10% or under. If you used to watch my videos from last season, you'll know that I used to incorporate a section in my transfer target videos every week, which would be differentials of the week. And that threshold that I had would be 7.5% or under. That's what I would class as a differential. However, because we haven't started the season yet, I just wanted to sort of like give that leeway a little bit more, just in case there was anyone roughly around the sort of like back end of 9, maybe 10%. On this list that I've got though, however, I think the highest player that I've got percentage wise is 7.1, so we shouldn't be too bad, but I've kept the differential threshold as 10% and under. So first up, Matson. He's coming in at 5 million from Aston Villa. Now, as you can see on screen, I haven't actually got any stats for him, and there was some from last season, but he only started one game for Chelsea before he got the move to Dortmund for the whole of last season, so I just didn't bother to include them. I think he's an interesting one. Now, currently at the time of recording, he's actually only owned by 5% of the game, which I can understand why, because of, obviously, Aston Villa have Lucas Digne, they have Alex Moreno, so they've got other options in that position. However, he's someone that I've spoken about over the last sort of few weeks, and I can't see a world in where they've spent sort of £30+ million on a left back not to play him. He had a fantastic season when he was out on loan last year with Dortmund, and I think, I think he will actually elevate what Aston Villa do have down that left-hand side. As good as Digne and Moreno are, both of them bring something different. Both of them are great players. However, I think Matson kind of incorporates both of them and maybe a little bit more, especially on the defensive side of things. So for me personally, currently at 5% owned, Aston Villa have got a good start to the season, fixture-wise as well. So I think you could definitely make a case to sort of budget the extra 0.5 million above a like of a Konsa or a Matty Cash or someone like that. If you want to find a way into the Aston Villa defense, I think 5 million at 5% owned, I think that's a really nice differential for Matson. Okay, next up, another fullback, Daniel Munoz. He's currently also 5 million as well. He's only owned by 4.2% of the game, which, when I was making this video, it actually did surprise me how little he was owned, just because A, how good Crystal Palace were towards the back end of last season, both defensively and offensively, but B, his stats-wise are actually quite good. So he managed to get 4 assists in the time that he played last season. Which I think actually isn't too bad. Tariq Mitchell was doing his thing down the left-hand side. They had Eze and Elise, so he had a lot of sort of goals and assists spread around that whole Palace team. Now defensively, they were very good towards the end of the season as well. I think a lot of us would have owned at least one of them sort of going towards the back end of the season, if not, Mark Gahey. There would have been some sort of Crystal Palace defender in there just because of how cheap they were. Now, I get why him and Tariq Mitchell both been put and set at 5 million. Obviously, Crystal Palace do play with a 5-back, which allows sort of Munoz and Mitchell to sort of bomb on. Now, the reason why I put Tariq Mitchell in here is I just think Munoz has got a little bit more of attacking threat. And obviously, with the departure of Elise, I think that sort of frees him up a little bit more down the right-hand side just to sort of keep going forward. He's had a fantastic few months with Colombia as well going forward in that right wing-back spot. So, yeah, for me personally, I think he kind of offers maybe a little bit more than Matson in terms of the defensive side of things as well. I think Crystal Palace probably will be more relied upon for the clean sheet wise. An expected goal against of just 1.23, which for the state Crystal Palace were in for most of last season, that last 10 games really did sort of like open up a lot to us that actually they are a good team defensively. They just needed the right manager. One word of caution around this, though, is that Mark Gahey looking like he's going to be moving to Newcastle. Now, I don't know if Crystal Palace will replace him, but if he does leave, I think that does affect it just slightly because, obviously how good he is as a player. Last season he was fantastic. He had a great Euros too. So I think, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Mark Gahey does go, who Crystal Palace will sign to partner Joachim Andersen. I think then maybe there's more questions to be asked around Daniel Munoz. But as of right now, at the time of recording, 4.2% owned, coming in at 5 million, I think has got potential for points in both ways, both from the clean sheets, but also going forward as well. I think he's a good overall solid pick. Okay, next up, one of my personal favourites, that is Mr. Anthony Robertson from Fulham. He's coming in at only 5.6% owned. And I think he's one of those players that seems to, for me, go under the radar every single season. he is very attacking at that left back spot. As you can see, he picked up 6 assists last year, which, for a Fulham side who were a little bit hit and miss at times, maybe towards the back end of the season, but I think for the majority of the season, they were a very good team. And I think he's someone that every year seems to just be overlooked. And when he's at the 4.5 million mark, I think he's more than a viable option. Obviously, he has a great start to the season as well. Fulham play to the promoted sides in Leicester and Ipswich in their opening three, and the other fixture is Man United on the opening day of the season, which I wouldn't say is a sure done deal for Man United. I think Fulham will definitely give them a good game. Smith Rowe's just gone to there now. Got a goal on his debut, so I think Fulham are going to be a team to watch this year. It's a shame they lost João Paulinho, but I think I think Robinson down that left hand side for me. He's always on the overlap, very quick, athletic. Like I said, picked up 6 assists last season, and it's somebody who always seems to just fly under the radar. So yeah, for me, 4.5 million as well. I think it sort of gives him that little bit of an edge. And like I said in the last section, if obviously Mark Gahey leaves, maybe you could save yourself 0.5 million by going and get Robinson over the likes of Munoz or the likes of Matson, especially because, as I said, 2 of his first 3 fixtures are against newly promoted sides. Okay, so the last defender on this list is almost a little bit of a forgotten man in Rico Henry. Now, obviously, he was out for pretty much all of last season. He got 5 starts last year before he got injured, so he was out for the majority of it, which is why stats on screen now, I must say, are from his season before. So I went back and had a look because there wasn't really anything to compare from the season just gone. So I went back to the 2022-23 season. 11 clean sheets for Brentford, which, to be honest with you, I was a little bit underwhelmed with them last season defensively. I think that they should have got more clean sheets, maybe a little bit unfortunate at times, but I think having Rico Henry back in that defence is only going to add to their chances of getting clean sheets. He's someone who, again, when Brentford do play that sort of 3 at the back, 5 at the back system, he's someone who sort of has the license to get on and is also good for an assist. Season prior did pick up 3 assists. In last season, the one that he only got 5 starts in, he did manage to get an assist in that time, but again, it wasn't a fair sample size to sort of take from Rico Henry on this one. So I just thought at 4.5 million, he is only currently owned by 0.5% of the game, which, I think for me personally, I know a lot of people are going to be looking at Flecken as a way into the Brentford defence, but to be honest with you, at 0.5 million, I think that is an exceptional differential and somebody who can get clean sheets because, Brentford, I think they were the ranked fourth best defensive team last year, but he's someone who also could chip up with an assist down that left hand side as well. So for me, I think someone who's been majorly slept on is Rico Henry, and it's one that I think if we're looking for sort of a budget enabler, is definitely more than a viable option. So we're going to move on to the midfielders now, and I'm going to start off with none other than Dio Jota, currently only owned by 3.7% of the game, coming in at 7.5 million. He is somebody who is actually currently in my draft. I don't actually have Mohamed Salah in my team as of right now, just to try to see if there was a way that I could spread the money elsewhere. And I have gone for Jota now. He started the last 2 games for Liverpool as their number 9. Will he continue to play that? I think is the big question which surrounds him. Because if he is going to play as their number 9 and he's going to get regular minutes and he's going to play past the hour mark, then I think he is more than adequate to cover that Salah spot and to free up money elsewhere. However, Gakpo had an amazing Euros. Diaz and Darwin have just come back. So Liverpool have got options in that forward line. And I do think that throughout the course of the season, there will definitely be rotation. Jota has been played as a number 9 in the preseason games, but is that only because he is the only number 9 there? Potentially. He actually did incredibly well last season, despite only getting 14 starts because he was injured for so many of them. He actually managed to get 10 goals and 7 assists. It's more than a goal involvement every single game, which for me, I was actually quite shocked when I saw those stats because I think that just goes to show how good Dio Jota is, especially as a finisher. I think he is no doubt Liverpool's most clinical finisher. And I think if he's got a run of games, a run of minutes, I definitely think he could return big and could also be on that list with the likes of Nkunku and Alexander Isak as one of the most underpriced players this season. So yeah, for me, only owned by 3.7% of the game. I think that's probably because everyone's waiting to see, how they line up. With their front 3, obviously Salah will probably be on the right. It just depends on who plays on the left and who plays in the middle. But yeah, for me personally, I think it's someone just to keep an eye on, just to wait and see. Maybe not get him straight away. Obviously, with that Ipswich game as their first game of the season, that's probably one of the games you would want him in there for. So definitely something to think about with him. But yeah, currently only owned by 3.7%, which I think is criminally low for someone who is as good as Dio Jota. Okay, next up, another sort of forgotten man in Kulusevski. Now, this one hurts as an Arsenal fan to put him in here, but I must say, I've been watching Spurs' preseason games, and he seems to be playing in like a false 9 / off the right. So, for me, the reason why I've got him in here, one, because he's only owned by 1.9% of the game, which I think is still very low. Spurs haven't got terrible start to the season. It's not amazing, but it's also not terrible. But like I said, if Kulusevski is going to start this season in a false 9, as opposed to having Son through the middle, I really like it. He's a very clever player and he's somebody who can bring others into the game, which not only does puts up his goal threat as we saw from a few seasons ago with him, but also puts up his assist threat as well. So yeah, he's somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on. Maybe he's not one to start the season with. Because like I said, Spurs haven't got the best fixtures. There are other options. People would probably want to go for the likes of Nkunku. You know, point 0.5 more, you can get yourself to an Eze and a Waymo. So maybe this one is not one to start the season. But I definitely think that at some point he is one to watch, and especially if his ownership stays that low and he is playing in the false nine, I think he could definitely bring some joy to our FPL team. He showed last season with 31 starts that he is, sort of favoured by Ange. Only got 8 goals and 3 assists, so not the most amazing record. However, I think if he does play more central and more into that false nine, I think we could see a lot more output from Dejan Kulusevski. So I'm going to put him on this list. Maybe, as I said, not one to start the season, but definitely one to keep an eye on. Now, Jacob Murphy. This is someone that I have not seen talked about anywhere in the community, and I'm not sure why, because he's currently only owned by 0.7% of the game. He has 4 goals so far in pre-season for Newcastle, and as far as I know, Newcastle haven't really got a nailed right winger. Almiron looks like it to be out of favour right now. They've just sold Minted to Brighton, so that's another one gone. I genuinely think we could see Jacob Murphy be starting the season on that right hand side. I think the only thing that comes with him is, do you want to triple up on Newcastle? I think a lot of people will have Isak, right? That's a given as it is. I think a lot of people will have Anthony Gordon. Obviously, if you go for Jacob Murphy, you're now tripled up on Newcastle. Now, don't get me wrong, Newcastle got a good start to the season, but are they a team which is good enough that you'd want to triple up on their attack? I'm not too sure personally. Now, he actually did get good goal returns from his games last season. He got 14 starts, 8 assists, 3 goals. So, 11 attacking returns in 14 games, which actually isn't too bad, especially for someone who's priced in at 5.5. And like I said, he has started the season very, very well. 4 goals in his first 3 games, or first 2 games, maybe even in preseason. So, yeah, he's someone that, again, maybe you wouldn't start with unless you didn't have Gordon. I think, as I said, a lot of people are going to, if not everyone's going to have Isak. If you didn't go for Gordon, maybe there's an opportunity there for you to save some money elsewhere and go for Jacob Murphy. Like I said, I do almost expect him to start, because I don't think Almiron's in favour, and I can't really see anyone else that they've got who can play that right hand side. So for me, I definitely think he'll start. And with Newcastle's fixtures and the form he's in at the moment, I think could be a very, very nice differential to having your team to start the year off. Okay, on to the forwards now, and the first one up is my favourite player, the player who has been consistently in every draft I've done so far, and that is Rodrigo Munoz from Fulham. He is the most owned player on this list, and he is the one who's coming in at 7.1% owned. I think I said it in 2 videos ago that he is almost in like that sort of template front 3 of Haaland, Isak, and Munoz in most people's teams, and rightly so. Like I said with Robinson, Fulham have got a great start to the season, playing 2 of the promoted sides in the first 3, and the fact that they've just gone and put Emil Smith-Rowe into their team as well just makes Rodrigo's case so much more valid to own him over the likes of Chris Wood or maybe like a João Pedro around that price range. I just think that he, as their number 9, he's got the number 9 shirt now. I think he's going to be starting every game for them. And he's somebody who finished off last season very well. And like I said, you couple that with adding Smith-Rowe into the team behind him, with Andreas Pereira, Iwobi, these type of players, it just opens up more creativity for Munoz to hopefully get some more goals up front. So I think he's someone who, like I said, whether you're going to have him as bench fodder, I say bench fodder, whether you're going to have him as like number 1 sub on the bench or you're going to play him, I think at 6 million he's just a fantastic price. And like I said, Fulham's opening fixtures are more than justified to see him get some returns in them. Right, the penultimate pick, and probably the most controversial one on this list, and that is Nicholas Jackson. A hero for some of us, a villain for most of us, but he's coming in at 7.5 million this year, only owned by 3.1%. Now, why have I put Nicholas Jackson there? Because he's one of those players like Timo Werner from a few seasons ago, like Darwin Núñez from last season, where he has got so much potential, but so frustrating at the same time. However, what I will say about him is 2 things. Number 1, Chelsea's fixtures from game week 2. I know they have Man City in the opening one, but from game week 2, their fixtures do swing. Now, defensively, I'm not expecting clean sheets from them. But offensively, I am expecting them to score goals. Now, if he's going to stay up front with a fit Nkunku, Palmer comes back, they'll create chances for him. And do you know what? Out of the players that I just mentioned there with Werner and Darwin, I know he's like that style, but his stats show that he's actually a lot better than maybe what people are giving him credit. He got 14 goals and 6 assists in 31 starts last year. So that's over 20 goal involvements in 31 games, which I think is actually pretty good going, despite the fact that he probably could have had more as well. He has a 0.68 expected goal involvement per game. So he's pushing towards that sort of 1 goal involvement every game, which, for someone who gets absolutely criticised and ridiculed, I actually think that's not too bad of a pickup, actually. So yeah, coming in at 7.5 million, I think obviously that price bracket for him is one of those awkward ones where you're gonna have to spend a little bit more and sacrifice from somewhere else in the team. But I think it's probably worth it actually with him. And like I said, from Chelsea from game week 2 onwards, their fixtures do swing nicely. So I'm not saying he's going to be, someone who's going to be put into most people's teams. However, I do think there's more than a viable case to argue a point for him. One, to cover the Chelsea attack, but two, because I do think he's a little bit hard done by sometimes at times with the criticism he gets. And last up, I have switched it up, and I had to put a goalkeeper in here just for the sake of variety. And again, another man who seems to be a little bit of a forgotten man, that is Nick Pope. At the time of recording, currently coming in at 5.8% owned. He's only 5 million, and I think that this could be a steal for him. I think, if you've been playing FPL for a few seasons now, if you rewind your mind back to, I think it was the 1920 season, he was sensational. I think he hit about 170 points that year. He had about 15 odd clean sheets, and Nick Pope is a fantastic goalkeeper on his day. I think, for a Newcastle defense which struggled last year, like I said, I've said in one of my previous videos that, with him coming back, if Newcastle managed to pick up Mark Gahey, Sandro Tonali comes back in September, I do expect more clean sheets from Newcastle. They didn't do too bad last year. I think away from home was their bigger issue, but I think, Nick Pope is just a better goalkeeper than Dubravka. You're going to get more saves from him. As you can see on screen, he averages 2.88 saves a game, so he's nearly at the three saves. So you're almost guaranteed, even if he concedes, you're going to guarantee yourself almost an extra point anyway from the saves. So for me, yeah, Nick Pope is someone who, as the time of recording in my current draft, he's actually in there as well, just to cover the Newcastle defense, because like I said, they've got such a good opening run of fixtures. And I think for him at 5 million, I do think he's worth paying that extra 0.5 over any of the 4.5 goalkeepers that you're looking at right now. So yeah, for me, a little bit of a forgotten man, but had to include a goalkeeper just to finish off the list. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, like I said, don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Thank you guys so much for all the recent support on my videos that I posted up over the last few days. You guys have been going crazy with the views, the likes, and especially the comments. That's the one thing I want to just say. If you guys are out there, even if you don't like the video, even if you don't subscribe, just drop a comment in there. Let's have a conversation about something. Let me know what you think about my differential list. If there's anyone else that maybe I've missed out, anyone that you guys would want to see on the list, anyone that you're thinking about that's maybe at this point in time a differential. Remember, we're going to keep it under 10% owned. So yeah, if you guys got any names, just drop them in the comments down below. I'll hopefully be back towards the end of this week, maybe with like another updated draft. It'll probably be coming to the final stages of that now. But yeah, like I said, if you guys have enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I'll catch you guys next time.